Well, hey there, idiots. Welcome back to Observe. On December 9th of 2021, Leonard Larry McKelvey, professionally known as Charlamagne the God, spoke with musical artist Jacques Berman Webster II, professionally known as Travis Scott, about the Astroworld disaster that left 10 people dead and others injured. As footage of the festival hit the internet, people were agitated by Travis Scott's behavior both during the performance and in a small video he created shortly thereafter addressing the situation. If you would like to see the analysis of that video, it is linked in the description of this one. The description under the original interview footage we are analyzing today states, Charlamagne the God and Travis Scott in his first interview since the Astroworld Festival. During this open conversation, Scott goes in depth about the events on November 5th, and now he wants to ensure that it never happens again. More on that in just a moment. Let's go ahead and roll the intro. Now, I want to be clear, the point of this video is not to be able to determine whether or not Travis Scott is lying. This is going to be able to determine whether or not what he's presenting, the emotions that he's presenting are genuinely felt, and if there are any desynchronizations based off of that. And by desynchronizations, I mean that what his words are saying go against what his body language is presenting. If he says he's okay, but shows non-verbally that he's not, that would be a desynchronization. So with these in mind, I wanted to go ahead and dive into this. Yeah.
So whenever you're ready. Travis Scott, what's up, brother?
What it do?
How you feeling?
I've been on about like different type of like emotions, emotional roller coaster. It gets so hard because, I always felt like connected with my fans.
Mm-hmm.
And, I went through something, and I feel like fans went through something and people's parents went through something. And it's, it really, it hurts. It hurts the community, it hurts a city. And it's just been a lot of thoughts, a lot of feelings, a lot of...
Okay, I'm going to go ahead and pause it as he's continuing to talk here. So some things that I want to note non-verbally about Travis Scott in this specific interview. You hear where his non-verbal baseline for his voice tone is at this kind of lower, softer pitch that he's speaking in. You hear it start off a little bit higher with an agitated lilt to it, and then it drops back down and settles down into his normal tone. So we're going to be looking at that for his baseline for this specific interview. Any other variants from that, be it a spike upwards or downwards in his pitch, tone, or quality thereof, is a red flag for us to consider. Along with that, we can hear that he's having a lot of vocal difficulty. That means that he's thinking about what he's saying a lot before saying it. Now, there are a few reasons that this is likely to be the case. The first reason is because this is his first interview. He knows that this is going to be publicized and picked apart, even as it says at the very end of this interview. Along with that, he has likely been coached. In fact, I know he has to have been coached into what he has to say in this interview because it stands out in a very uncomfortable contrast in this specific interview with his normal answering patterns. He does a lot to try to circumvent any answers he can possibly give. Along with that, we'll note his nonverbal demeanor as well. You can see that he's relatively relaxed and semi-mirroring the interviewer, and this is just important to note about their relationship, that they do seem to be at least on the same page. That's enough chit-chat for this little tiny segment here. Let's continue forward.
Grieving, and just, trying to wrap my head around it,
Mm-hmm.
I really wanted to be there. And just, wish you could just kind of like hold everyone, kind of just heal them, talk to them, have conversations.
So something that is popping up and will continue to pop up an incredible amount during this specific interview is Travis Scott's buying time words, his ums and you-knows. In fact, I counted just the you-knows. I tried to count just the you-knows 539 times in the 51-minute interview. Regardless, all of these numbers thrown at you, the reason that this is important to note is because he is using this word over and over and over and over and over again, and it's a buying time word. This is another indicator that he's thinking about everything that he says a lot. And we'll see how that affects what his responses are and the emotional value behind them as we continue through this.
You know, it just, you know, it really just hurts, man.
What's your intention with this conversation? Like what do you hope to get out of this, or what do you hope to get out?
I don't personally have an intention. I just feel like something happened, and I feel like it's just, I needed just a way to kind of like communicate, you know?
Mm-hmm.
So every time that Travis begins to answer a question, he does a postural shift of some form, be it moving his chair, be it adjusting, anything like that. That's a postural change. Now that doesn't stick out as a tell for a lie or deceit or even just a red flag. That just indicates that Travis is going from the listening mode to the answering mode. And you'll see that happen anywhere you see a person having to shift more or less roles. So you'll see those pop up regularly. But the fact that he is thinking so much about this is a little discouraging, and we'll see why a little bit later.
One, you know, the families are grieving, you know, it's fans that experienced something, it's fans that came to a show. You know, and I feel like I just have like I've always been that person to always see things through with the people that shared experiences with me.
So this is interesting. This is still in response to the interviewer's question of what do you hope to get from this interview? What's your goal from this? To which Travis said, I don't really have one. And now he's still answering about how he more or less does have one. And that's fascinating. Why does he say, I don't have any goals in this? And then he immediately says that he does have goals. And I'm not sure what his exact psychological reasoning for this could be. There's not a physical sign for that, but it does make me ask, why is he doing that? And one of the questions or answers for that question might be, is that he could be just trying to come across as not conniving. He doesn't have an ulterior motive, and when he does reveal his ulterior motive, it comes across as a very pure and like white knight kind of motive of I just want to communicate. So that could be a possibility, but like I said, there's nothing to hang that on right now, but it is something that I'm noting, even just how he's patterning his verbal sentences as well. Let's continue.
And you know, it just, things happen, and you know, I just kind of, you know, it's been such a time, and I've just been trying to just really figure things out, you know.
I know you.
So this isn't showing a lot of confidence from Travis during this point. He has a pretty substantial gulp in there that indicates that he's having a dry mouth. He's nervous, and you can see other agitation tells coming out with his leg. He's doing some fidgeting, some shifting, some postural changes, even during the middle of a sentence. Now keep in mind, his role isn't changing in the middle of his sentence, so what's the postural change meaning? Why is he shifting around so much? This means that he is agitated. So what is causing him agitation around this? Right now, it could just be the uncomfortable nature of the question. It's too early to say, but he is experiencing agitation around that. Let's continue watching.
I'm sure you're experiencing remorse, but was there any hesitation to have this conversation because of the litigation you may be facing?
So something else that I want to note here because of how this specific question was phrased is that the interviewer is assuming the best of Travis. He's saying, I know you have to feel some level of remorse, but blah, blah, blah. So he assumes this good quality to Travis, which is building rapport between himself and Travis. Now, whether or not this is an intentional move to perhaps get Travis to open up more, I don't know. It's difficult to say. It could also be that this is not going to be an unbiased interview, but one that's lilted towards Travis. So it is something that we need to keep in mind as we proceed forward. Another thing that is pushing me to believe that it might be tilted towards Travis's advantage is that he continues to use the phrase "you know" and refers to showbiz terminology and etiquette to Charlamagne during this interview regularly, showing this kind of camaraderie between two artists, more or less. So this is something to consider moving forward, that this might not be the most unbiased of interviews. Let's continue.
Well, I mean, yeah, of course you got people that's just like, oh, what? Like, you know, but it's not about that. You know, it's, you know, you're an artist, you, whoever people think you are, but at the end of the day, you're a human being, you know, and you have emotions. You want to communicate them emotions, you know, and trying to find the best way to communicate, you know, how you just feeling, you know.
How have you been coping with the aftermath of everything?
So he still navigates around every question that he's asked as politically as he possibly can. He doesn't want to trap himself into any corner, and we'll see this pop up again and again and again, especially if any question is in any way possibly seen as incriminating towards Travis. If that's even a remote suggestion or hint of it, he more or less runs away or completely doesn't answer the question at all. And that's where you know that he has been heavily, heavily, heavily coached by his legal team to say more or less, it seems as though nothing, which makes us wonder why he released this video at all. Let's continue watching it.
Just emotionally, just you as a human.
I've been just in a room for a while, you know, a lot of thoughts, and luckily, you know, you have people around that you can kind of bounce ideas, but it just been, you know, I've been doing this for such a long time, and, you know, nothing like this ever happened, you know, so it just kind of like, you just kind of figuring out, and at the end of the day, like, these fans are your family, so you just feel like you lost something, and you do these shows, honestly, to, you know, for people to have the best experience, you know, and just to think that something like this happened, you're just trying to figure out, you know.
So this continues to go on, and you can hear how he's avoiding saying anything like, I feel bad, I feel sorry, I feel responsible, I feel anything that might incriminate me towards this action, hold me responsible for this action. So that's why this is feeling so detached for people. We're watching him squirm and uncomfortably give these fake, hollow responses to the questions that we all have. We don't want to know about his weird, twisted answer, non-answer to these questions. We want to know how he's feeling, but he can't do that. So once again, I'm just asking, why would you bother releasing this if you're not going to say anything or really own up to anything? But let's continue watching.
You know, just wrap everything around. And so even just for the first couple weeks, you know, it was just me sitting down, but I had to really channel these emotions to just remember, like, you know, if no one's gonna be a voice for these people, I gotta like kind of step up and kind of like be a voice to just figure out that, you know, this doesn't happen in the future, just shows, period. You know what I'm saying? Or figure out the bottom solution of what's going on and just try to ensure people, you know, safety and what they're doing, you know.
Yeah, you said you was in the room, but then people saw you at the golf course.
Yeah,
with Michael Jordan and Mark Wahlberg. What was that?
It was just Thanksgiving. You know, and they were there. You know, it's just good people to have around in the community.
So he's having a lot of difficulty responding to everything, and the you-knows and ums come up more regularly when he is more agitated. So that means that is a fairly reliable tell of his agitation. If we see those you-knows and ums increase dramatically in that sentence, something is agitating about said sentence. So we have to ask questions. So it's coming up around here, and he's not handling the interview well. He's not answering our questions that we have. And everywhere that I have to look at his nonverbal communication is characterized by agitation. That's all that he's been displaying this entire time, has been various signs of agitation. He's nervous as all get out, and he's answering nothing at all. So it's kind of a curiosity to me, but there is more to see from this. So let's continue watching.
And, you know, that was just more like a personal time, just trying to get around. Think like some fan came and asked for a photo. But yeah.
Yeah, people said they collectively heard folks screaming help every time you stopped the song to get your attention. Did you hear any of those screams?
Nah, man. And you know, it's so crazy because I'm that artist too. Like, you know, anytime you can hear something like that, you want to stop the show. You want to make.
Very fascinating. He says, nah, man, which is an odd variance from how he normally responds to the questions. But I don't know if it's anything of note quite yet, just making note of it now. So he says, nah, man, but then he immediately diverts off to the side, talking about how he's the type of person that would do such and such thing, which is loosely related, but we'll see this come up again from Travis, where he tangents off to the side to divert attention to another subject. It's fascinating, and it's a manipulation tactic, which he was probably coached to do, but it is kind of also frustrating to see in a video, especially about this. So let's continue.
Sure, you know, fans get the proper attention they need, you know. And anytime I could see anything like that, I did, you know. I stopped it like a couple times to just make sure.
I wouldn't really hold weight to that at that point. His pitch goes up pretty high, and he also has a visible change to his face where he's swinching up one side of it, and that means he's uncomfortable with what he's saying. Maybe there's something that he's not so certain about, something along those lines. I'm not saying he's lying in this area, but I would say that he is having some psychological difficulty in this area. Why that is, I'm not totally certain, but I would have questions there. Chances are he probably was more aware of what was going on than he's going to give light to in this interview, and that causes him discomfort to him as he tries to bluff about that during the interview. But let's go ahead and continue watching.
Everybody was okay. And I just really just go off the, the fans' energy as a collective, call and response. And I just didn't hear that. I got music, I got my in-ears, but I just didn't hear that,
Raging has been a point.
Okay, real quick here, I'll pause that because I did fast forward through this segment. They do talk about the dynamics of working on stage, which if you want to go and watch that, please feel free to watch the full interview. It is over on the original channel, linked below. So consider doing that. But they do bounce back and forth talking about that. Now, the reason that they still said it is important, and it shows more of this camaraderie that seems to be built between the interviewer and the interviewee. And we don't know if that's the kind of relationship we want in this situation. It doesn't seem to be pushing us towards an unbiased interview. Might be a little bit more biased. But let's continue watching. They're going to be talking about some of the activities of the crowds and how it affects the overall demeanor of these events.
Part of the culture, of your shows, you didn't on this night, but in the past, you've encouraged, I guess, the kind of energy that could have led to something like this happening. Mm-hmm. Do you think that contributed to the energy of this night?
Yeah, nah, I think, it's something I've been working on, for a while, of just creating these experiences and trying to show like the experiences happening in a safe environment. Mm-hmm. Us as artists.
So he answers again, yeah, nah, and he has that nah answer. And there again, in another area that seems to be riddled with red flags, he has another heightened pitch in there. This could be his specific and individual cluster of tells of deceit. I'm not sure, but it could be, and it's interesting that it's popped up in two specific instances that it seems rather illogical to argue against. Once again, he has encouraged this style of behavior before, so for him to say, I don't think this has any influence over what happened, seems kind of illogical. So he has responded with this yeah, nah, in the same exact tone, now twice, to two possible points of deceit. Interesting things to make note. Let's continue watching. It sounds like he's about to go off on a tangent, because he is.
We trust, professionals to make sure that things happen and people leave, safely, you know what I'm saying? And this night was just like a regular show, it felt like to me. As far as like, the energy, it didn't feel like it was like, people didn't show up there to just be harmful. Mm-hmm. People just, I think, showed up to have a good time, and then, something unfortunate happened. And I think we really just got to figure out, what that was,
What headspace were you in when you posted?
Where he says that I'm gonna figure out what that was, that dramatic drop in pitch, there's something centered around that. Again, once again, why would that happen psychologically unless there was a reason for it? So in those areas, it's been said that tone drops like that, where you hear drop in both the quality, the richness of the tone, where it became more soft and gravelly, and then also the pitch became lower as well, that can indicate a lack of sincerity or a lack of confidence. So perhaps he has a lack of sincerity or confidence centered around trying to discover what the root of that problem was. Maybe he already knows, or maybe there's something else that we're just not aware of centered around that. Regardless, he does show a tell of that. The other option is that he could be displaying perhaps aggression. A very low tone like that could indicate a low controlled level of rage. And then the last one is possible grief or sadness. Now the rage doesn't make as much sense. Possibly sadness, that could be in there as well. That doesn't make as much contextually, but it still does make possible sense. So let's keep those in mind as we continue forward. So at the end, we have a good idea as to what we should feel about this. Let's continue.
That initial response video.
I mean, it was, I think it had to have been the night of, So I was just in a headspace of just trying to get a communication out to my fans, you know. I had little to no information, you know, so I was just trying to figure it out and just communicate to them, you know. Yeah, I was just...
Okay, so this is in in regards to the video that I mentioned before. Now everybody knows of the video now. It has taken the internet by storm, and there were a number of things that we saw in there that lent us to believe that it was very insincere. So he even says in this that his thought wasn't panic or shame or sadness or grief or anything that would be, once again, incriminating of him. He just says that he wants to communicate with them, which is the most unsatisfying answer that you could possibly hope to get from this, which is once again one of those instances like, why on earth did you bother saying this if you're not going to say anything? We know that you wanted to communicate. That's what we're all doing when we talk, is communicating. Thank you for that part. What were you feeling? What were you thinking? Not, I want to communicate. So that's where, I mean, many people are having difficulty with this, is because he's just not answering our questions. Let's continue.
Reacting just literally just to get something to the fans, you know. It's people that showed up.
Do you regret that initial video? Do you regret reacting in that way, or not having all the information before you said something?
I mean, yeah, because, you know, you just don't know what's going on, but at the end of the day, I just wanted to get something out. You know, how my message came out, I can't, you know, I can only go off what I know, but...
Mm-hmm.
There's something around that idea of regretting that video that he doesn't want to spend time on. He says, yeah, but, and then he starts to add a lot of information afterwards. This is, again, that tangent style thing that he does here, where he tries to rabbit trail off to the side as quickly as he can to divert attention. So there is something that's pretty hefty centered around that. Perhaps his legal team isn't very happy that he released that. Perhaps he's just regretting the massive social outrage that happened during this time. I'm not sure. Regardless, we know that he's having some sort of mental issue with moving right on by that. So let's continue watching.
My true intentions of it, you know, was really just trying to get a message across, and, you know, really wanted to just touch to the fans, touch to the families, you know, that we here, we grieving, and we'll get through this, you know, through this process.
You know, it's crazy, just, you know, being there kicking it with you for a little bit, like, I can see that, you know, this is weighing real heavy on you.
Yeah.
So how much do you feel a sense of responsibility?
Okay, this is an important question, and there are some things to note. Once again, the interviewer is trying to build yet more rapport with Travis. I'm not sure that's necessary at this point. We're a good part of the way through the interview, and it's kind of well beyond the rapport building part. Now we just kind of need to ask the difficult questions and get the difficult answers back. So he's building more rapport and, again, assuming this positive thing to Travis that hasn't been admitted on any other level. This is still pushing me to believe that this isn't an unbiased interview, but rather one that might be a little bit biased towards Travis. It's curious to me. Now, this is an important question that he has asked here, and the nonverbal communication will hopefully be pretty revealing during this. And I mean on all levels. This also includes, just so you know, the spacing of the time in between the words, the phrasing, how it flows. That's also part of a nonverbal communication read. So let's pay attention to all of the channels that we can and see what we can learn.
So what happened that night?
Well, you know, fans come to the show and have a good experience, you know. And I have a responsibility to figure out what happened here. I have a responsibility to figure out the solution. And, you know, and I gotta, and hopefully this takes a first step into, you know, us as artists, you know, having that more insight of what's going on. You know what I'm saying? And
he just once again dives right by the question and doesn't answer it and starts to answer with a diversion. Again, we can tell this is a legally coached thing because it's a not answer. He's answering a question that was not asked to him. This is a coached thing, and once again, people are frustrated about what the point of this is. Non-verbally speaking, all that I can note is that he has spent a lot of times once again saying, you knows, ums, uhs. There have been a lot of vocal pauses. There have been massive amounts of broken phrases and broken flow during those phrases that have all indicated to me that he's having a difficult time psychologically with all of this, and he's having trouble now holding the interviewer's gaze as well. Perhaps this is centered around shame. It is certainly not an expression of pride on his face, and it is partial shame, but we don't know that for certain because there isn't anything else to back up those perhaps blocking gestures that would indicate shame. Maybe shame, definitely not a positive feeling. Let's continue.
You know, the professionals to kind of, you know, surround and figure out more of an intel, whether it's tech, whether it's, you know, more of a response, whether it's whatever the problem is, you know, to figure out that and in the future moving forward in concert safety, make sure it just never happen again, you know?
But let's talk about those professionals. Like how much responsibility do you think like Live Nation and Score More, the promoters, have in all of this?
I mean, you know, they do their job of, you know, setting these things up. So, I mean, I think, you know, they when we dial into what, you know, specifically happened here, I feel like, you know, even they can kind of help, you know, figure out.
Okay, this is a huge pile of agitated gestures around this question of how much responsibility do you feel the companies are having? And he answers it-ish with I think they could have some responsibility in us helping finding the answer, you know, kind of. And so that's more or less his response. But what's interesting to me is that agitation around it. He gets extremely agitated when asked about it and admits that he does believe that the companies have at least some fault. Now, with the agitated behavior centered around it, my belief is that he thinks that they have a lot more responsibility than what he's letting on in this interview. Now, chances are he couldn't say it. He couldn't say, oh, I think they have complete responsibility. They set it up. It's their problem. He can't say that because likely of the legal implications of it. So he's doing another wishy-washy answer and everybody's upset about it again. Let's continue.
What happened in a sense. You know, but at the end of the day, I think collectively, everyone needs to just figure out the bottom line solution. But, you know, especially in concert safety, you know, definitely got to have, you know, make sure that, you know, these things are, you know, done right.
Wow. Do you feel like people are forcing more responsibility on you because you are the front man, because it was Astroworld?
Well, yeah, I mean, you know, I'm the face of the festival. You know, I'm an artist. You know, so yeah, you know, the media is, you know, they want to, you know, put it on me. But at the end of the day, it's like, I don't think it's more so about that. I think it's more so about stepping up to figure out what the problem is, and I could take that. I could take, you know, stepping up to figure out what the problem is. I could take stepping into figuring out the solution that never happened again. Because that's what I generally want to do in general, even just for my community, you know?
So this is fascinating. The method behind this, or the reason behind this, is he's asking, do you feel like you have too much responsibility put on you? And Travis says, yeah. And then Travis continues to go on and say, but it's something that I can take. So this is just showing us some things from his character. He, one, does believe that he is not as guilty as what people perceive him to be. So if you're watching this and you feel like he could have done something else, he likely doesn't believe that. However, something that is a positive for him is that he is at least willing to accept that people are going to point that at him and move forward. Now, where this is falling flat for people, because though that is a shining attribute, where it's falling flat is that he's not giving any due time or respect or emotion towards the victims of this tragedy, of which he was the front runner. Did he design it? Absolutely not. Did he have anything to do with the organization of those stands and where crowds were getting in and not? Likely no. The singers, the actual artists, rarely have anything to do with that. So he doesn't have that kind of responsibility. But from his viewpoint, he did have the responsibility of making basic observations, which he did. He was filmed seeing. You could see him making those observations, and he just didn't take the actions appropriate. So that's where that makes that fall a little bit flat, is that he just wants to rush by and act as if he's being proactive now, when that's not what we're needing quite yet. We need that proactivity, very true. We need this to be something that can be prevented in the future. But we still need to wait a moment on the grieving before we rush on to let's start the new thing. That's where people are having difficulty. Let's continue watching.
You know?
Do you feel like you did everything you possibly could to help in that situation?
Yes. Yes. Anything I physically can.
Like I said, nonverbal communication has no universal signs of deceit. I can't say for certain that this person is lying to us. However, during that time, there was a large amount of nonverbal tells, nonverbal spikes, red flags that would lend me to believe that he might be displaying deceit. So the first reason is that he answers very shortly with a yes. And he also dips his head in, tucks his head down. This is protecting this area here. This is a defensive gesture. He also sits back, and his voice and pitch and tone all drop. And that indicates to me that he doesn't have certainty and he feels attacked by that. Finally, as if the icing on top, he does a pretty substantial itching gesture up here. Now, that itching gesture could just very well be that perhaps a random itch just struck his fancy and he had to do that. That is that possibility. The human body is very complex. However, it is interesting to me that it did pop up at a very, very crucial point and as he was giving a very, very important answer. So at that point, I don't believe he was telling the truth. And those are my reasons why. Let's continue watching.
Sure, yes. You know, and it just, you know, if knowing, you know, what's going on, you know, you would just wish, you know, how, if you know, could have done something better, or, you know, but standing there, 1000%.
You're a father, you know, God forbid.
So that's, I mean, it's difficult to say. I personally think that he could have done a little bit more than he did. It seems as though his actions while on stage were quite lacking physically, vocally, everything. It seemed as though he was quite detached and rather enabled the behavior that was around him. So I wouldn't say that he did that, and I also wouldn't say that he believed he did that in that point, which is unfortunate. Does that mean that he doesn't regret it? That's a different story, and we could talk about that at the end, but I don't think he did everything he could. Let's continue.
When your kids are of age, if they're in a situation like this, you know, I want you to put yourself in those parents' shoes right now. What would you want to see come of this situation?
This is an important question. I'm pausing it here before he answers because this is the question. The old question of how to tell if a person's guilty is to ask them what their punishment would be, so on and so forth. Now, this falls apart rather quickly, but it is still something to note. You need to pay attention to what they do answer here. Is it a law of science that this is exactly what will happen every single time a person is guilty? No. But it is still important. So let's see how he answers. Is he going to be just or is he going to be extremely gracious? It's very curious. Let's see.
I want to see people put their heads together. I want to see people really figure this out, not take this lightly, you know, and really act on it. And that's, you know, that's one of the main things.
I don't know that that's all that Travis would feel as a parent, and I don't think that Travis feels that he would feel that way. I don't really have too many reasons besides he's not making any eye contact with the interviewer at this point except for occasional checkups here and there. He has been doing that regularly, so this is just more of a hunch, so don't hold that to anything. But I don't have children, and I imagine that I would be awfully upset to find out that my child had passed at a concert, and I imagine I would be awfully upset at the performer of the concert, especially if I found out that they had a history for inciting violence at their concerts. So I just don't buy it, but I don't have a nonverbal reason for it, and I really do dearly hope that Travis's only response to something that terrible happening in his family wouldn't be like, well, I hope that the people in charge of that could get their heads together and just find the solution to this problem that they like. I just hope that that's not his response, because I don't think it's the family's response to this. I do hope that a solution's found, but that's not where we're at right now.
That's important. I feel like they gotta just act on it. It can't just be like something that happens and it just roll over. It gotta be something that's taken serious and addressed seriously. And things formed around it, time and a lot of time and a lot of, you know, thinking power spent on this, you know, and really fixing, you know, whatever system it is that needs to be fixed, you know.
As he's continuing to talk about this, he is continuing to display agitation with this subject. For some reason, he's lingering on it, and it's causing him psychological discomfort. He's doing a methodical massaging of his thigh here, that repetitious motion there that lets us know that it is a self-soothing gesture. He also has some lip licking in there, indicates a dry mouth, and that's coupled with gulping as well. All of these indicate intense agitation centered around this topic, and he still dwells on it. And I think the reason that might be is because he feels like it's an inept answer to the question. He's not answering the way we need him to, and I believe he knows that. He might be frustrated by it, I'm not sure, but he's not answering the way that he needs to answer to this. Now, when we can get that video, I think that's when we'll see what Travis really has to say. Right now, we're just hearing what his lawyers have to say.
Some people say your music played a role in this. Like I've seen them, you know, cite lyrics, you know, that encourage this kind of behavior. I've seen them say your music is demonic and this was a satanic ritual. You think your music is to blame?
I mean, no. I'm a man of God, so that's the first thing first, and you know, so it's just, yeah, that's that.
That wasn't the full answer that he gave. He went on to give some more not answer to that answer, where he talks about his theory of music and his philosophy of music and how its expression is, and it really doesn't answer the question again. Once again, because he can't incriminate himself on any level. But he also tries to pull the I'm a man of God card out, which goes directly against everything that was displayed at the concert that he was promoting as well. And yes, that is in combatant with his idea of what art needs to be displayed of and so on and so forth. But what I'm saying is that what he is showing physically and displaying lifestyle does not match up with the I'm the man of God thing that he is claiming to have over here. Curious, to say the least. Let's continue forward as well.
I mean, I think that's a part of it, but the music does encourage people to be violent at these shows. I mean, that's what the rage is about.
I mean, most of the music is me sometimes talking about what I see at the shows. You know what I mean?
So now the interviewer has done an excellent job and confronted. This is the first time that we really get to have a confrontation on an answer. This is what we've been needing a little bit more throughout the rest of this. But he confronts Travis, and Travis falls apart. We hear no certainty in his tone as all of the force behind it has fallen apart. He barely croaks, I mean, and it's all the way up at the top of his pitch register as well, which means he's extremely agitated and very uncomfortable, because it's true. Once again, Travis has been known for inciting violence and violent acts at his concerts, and his lyrics don't have the most cuddly of themes either, oftentimes. So this conflict here is a good indicator of where Travis will go when he's being pushed against, when his agitation increases. We can hear that again. And we've already seen that come up multiple times in the past, so we're now just understanding better and better how Travis Scott really behaves. So whenever we do eventually get to have a genuine video from Travis, well, then we'll know if he's being authentic or not.
If I'm talking about the shows, you know, and so that's just, you know, the energy, you know what I'm saying? But the energy isn't to come and start, you know, being ultra violent and just being violent and hurting each other. That's not.
And now Travis is getting a little bit more aggressive. He's sitting up a little bit more tall, and he's sitting a little bit more tensely, and he's moving a little bit more dynamically. He's been challenged, and he's not liking it. This is an important aspect of what we need to know from Travis. Travis wants to display himself as a victim during this specific interview. He's wanting to display that he's sorry, but he doesn't want anybody to actually push back against that. He won't say he's sorry, he just wants us to feel that he's sorry, and now that this interviewer has pushed back against him, Travis is getting a little agitated, a little aggressive at it. How dare you challenge that I don't incite rage at my concerts, even though it's part of it. And so it's fascinating that that's coming out centered around somebody challenging Travis on this. And very rightfully so. It's a very justified challenge. And Travis's response of, oh, well, sometimes I'm talking about what I see in the crowds, not inciting what's happening. I'm just, I don't know, making observations, I guess. That's his response. So keep that in mind as we continue forward.
Not what it's about.
So it's more so supposed to be entertainment.
Yeah, it's everything is, and it's about what you experience at the shows and what you see,
Will this change the content?
Interesting move by the interviewer. More tactfully done. He goes and he tries to rebuild rapport with Travis right after that to be able to regain that ground that he just lost with that rapport game, so to speak, that they're playing. And Travis responds as the interviewer would like and de-agitates. He decompresses a bit and his pitch and tones shift back down into their regular nonverbal baseline. So that's what the interviewer wanted in this part. Let's see how that plays out.
Your music moving forward, you think?
What happened here wasn't off Travis Scott music. That wasn't, oh, now you need to like switch up. We're trying to be a part of joy, trying to be a part of light, trying to be a part of full-blown happiness, love, understanding, people taking care of each other. Try to put...
Okay, I'm going to pause it here because you're seeing what he's doing and I'm fast forwarding so you don't have to hear the whole thing here. If you want to, please feel free to go and watch the full interview before watching this. But what I find interesting is that he's tangenting so hard off of the initial question itself and he refuses to answer it. And then in regards to him changing his music, he refuses to take any responsibility again, even down to his music's lyrics. At all levels during this entire interview, Travis Scott took zero responsibility for his festival. Did he organize the layout and structure of it? No. Does he set up the venue itself? No. Was it his concert? Yes. Was he the one on the stage that could have made things stop? Yes. So that's where people are upset. Let's continue.
Every year we put everything into the festival.
Just you as an individual, when you perform again, what precautions will you take moving forward? Just you, just based off what you can personally control. What precautions would you take moving forward?
I'll do the same thing I've, been doing, just double, making sure everybody is on post and, I'll do the, double down on just making sure that everyone is.
This sentence is just riddled. This response, this little tiny response is riddled with nonverbal spikes. He starts having the knows crop up every few words. He has a massive dry swallow in there. He starts massaging his hands together. His head is shaking no. He's having so many displays of agitation centered around this specific little question. And it's, I don't know, like, it's hard to look at and be like, that's not suspicious. That's not a red flag to me. All of those behaviors and how you answered that question, regardless, let's continue.
It's locked in. Everyone is aware. Everyone is on response. Everybody is on.
Also, I would like to note that his response is to what he's going to do from this point on to be better about this is to not change, but to do exactly what he's doing twice as hard. Okay.
On it. You know what I'm saying? And look out. Try to, if you felt like it wasn't there more, push for it to be more.
It could not be more obvious that Travis Scott has no idea what he's going to do moving forward. He has no idea. I don't think he's going to do what he's been doing because it didn't work real well. I don't think he knows what he's going to do from this point on. It's almost comical to see somebody so flustered by a question, a fairly straightforward question. He's so flustered and offset by this. I think that's fairly telling. Let's continue.
Push the call and response more with the fans.
Like, what do you mean? Like, are y'all okay?
Or, try to have some sort of call and response with the fans while still being smooth in the performance. Because at the end of the day, it's still performance art.
Okay, so it's a little bit frustrating to watch, to get through to the end of, because you get to the end of it and you're feeling like, I feel like Travis has answered nothing for me at all. I feel like he's said a lot of words and answered no questions, but let's continue watching.
When you did stop the show, how did you see that one person?
I mean, he was right there, you had you had people like just spread it out, And so I'm looking, I'm like, oh. So I just called down and, the medics just came in, responded, got him out,
That's the only one you saw that?
Yeah, that's the only one I saw. And then, when I seen the lights in the back, I just double checked, make sure everyone was okay. I got a response that everyone was okay. Yeah.
How normal is that to see ambulances and everything else at these festivals?
Well, it was lights, so, and ambulances don't really have like red and blue lights,
So you thought it was
I don't, you don't know, you just looking at his lights. That's why I asked. I'm just like, yo, is it an ambulance? It's like, what's going on? You don't know if it's like somebody got some lights up there doing some.
Okay, so during this part, he's backpedaling a bit, he's stumbling a fair bit, and also with that, here at the very end here, that very sharp gasp in, that kind of thing, that means that he's panicking a bit as well with this response centered around the ambulance, and once again, that's understandable. Ambulance is very, very distinguishable. It's quite literally covered with alarm lights. They're very, very bright, just extremely bright. You know what they are, and even he knows what they are, and that's why he said when he asked, he even mentions the first thing, is it an ambulance or anything? So he knew then that that was an ambulance. It's very easy to distinguish an ambulance from a very great distance, regardless. It's just fascinating to me that this is his response, this is his nonverbal patterning around this ambulance situation. I wouldn't necessarily hold as much weight behind that as well. Is he lying? I'm not sure. Is he agitated? Absolutely so. So let's continue.
You don't know, but, I didn't get a response. So, you got a response from the fans. I asked everyone to put their hand up. And then, didn't get a response from anything else, so just carried on.
Do you feel like your team right now is allowing you to do everything that you possibly could do?
And as far as what?
Just as far as like anything regarding to the situation, speaking out, reaching out to families, whatever.
Well, yeah, it's a lot of legal into it, but at the end of the day, I'm human, so I want to do so much to try to help. And
so he brings up there's a lot of legal into it, is how he's phrasing it. So yes, that's exactly all that this is all just the legal side of things. It's not a lot of legal, it's almost exclusively legal, which is frustrating to be able to make note of. And it's frustrating that it's so prevalent that he'll even call light of it in his responses. Let's continue.
Heal, and you want to give time for people to heal, and you want to give time. But, I want to be able to go and start taking these steps to, addressing these these problems and, getting to the solutions, addressing the solutions and addressing ways to fix these things from happening in the future. And I think that's the main thing.
Once again, Travis, that's fantastic. I do believe that there needs to be a solution for it, but you can't rush past the instance that you've already caused. You have to let people grieve, let people be sad, let people be outraged that 10 people are gone forever, and it's under your concert's name. So that's where people are mad at you, Travis, is not because we don't think you want to do something to fix it or do better in the future. Maybe you'll do better in the future. We don't know. What we're upset about is that you're treating it now like it's not your problem. And we understand that you're legally tied to do that. But don't try to make a video like this that just makes it seem like you care even less, that the legalities are making you seem less human than if you had said nothing at all. I don't know. Let's continue watching this.
And I've always took pride in trying to lead things and go and attack things and, you know, be the first to jump out and go do it, you know? So I'm more than, you know, happy enough to go.
So I guess my final question, man, who does Travis Scott ultimately, I guess, think is responsible for this tragedy?
You know,
I'm going to pause it here. That was a really long pause before this because this is a really big and important question. So how Travis answers this is going to be very revealing about his psychology. There's been very little time between now and the deaths. We're going to understand a fair bit about what Travis's psychology is from here, but we have to keep in mind that this is through the lens of a very, very stilted and coached legal system that he's working with. So let's see what he says. Is he going to hold towards what his lawyers say and take no responsibility and in fact try not to answer the question, as has been his MO the entire interview, on the most important question? Or is he going to show a little bit of his humanity and say that he feels sorry, that he might feel some responsibility?
it's crazy because something tragic happened here, and what I've just been trying to, you know, get to the bottom of is just what happened here, how it happened here. And I think the families are owed, you know, that. I feel like, you know, the community is owed that. I feel like we're owed that, to just know what happened here. And you know, I don't want to just speak too soon. I just want to figure out, you know, what happened, you know.
Mm-hmm.
But you know, we, like I said, you know, as artists, we just leave this up, you know, to perfection.
Gonna go ahead and pause it again here. We're at the very, very end. And again, Travis is trying to pull in the interview into a grouping with himself. He's trying to ask for this camaraderie-ship as artists, which, once again, is part of the reason that I'm questioning the unbiased nature of this interview to begin with. Let's continue. There's very little left of this clip that we're looking at.
Professionals, to make sure that we, you know, that fans are having a good time, you know, people are protected and can, you know, leave and have the best experience ever, you know?
You know they're going to pick this interview apart. So is there anything you want to say, you know, to your fans, to the family of people who lost loved ones, you know, before we get out of here?
I mean, I want everyone to just continue praying for the fans.
Yeah, after this pause, I'll let it go ahead and play through, because this is I don't know, this is hurtful to me. And I'm not even a fan. I'm just a person who has heard about the lives of these families and have looked into this whole instance. But what's hurtful is that he doesn't say that he's sorry. He doesn't say that he's grieving. He doesn't say that he wishes it could be different. And he can't legally say it because, like we said, it's incriminating. But it's frustrating to watch a person sacrifice their humanity for the sake of... Yeah, all right, let's watch the rest of this.
I want people to continue praying for the fans that was lost. Mm-hmm. You know, I want people to continue praying for the families. I want people to continue just reaching out for healing. I want people to continue to just be there for each other. And remember that, you know, that love is just, you know, everything. And with that, you know, we can try to cure everything, you know, and take steps into, you know, healing. And I think the more we, try to, you know, continue to let people grieve and continue to be there for people and, you know, check in on people and, you know, check in on your loved ones and just, you know, that, you know, I think that's just like one of the most important things, and, you know, staying strong through this while we, you know, figure out what's going on, you know, and bring understanding to these families and to the community.
That's what we're gonna do. We're gonna send healing energy to everybody involved, the families, you know, those who were lost, yourself, because nobody wants tragedies like this to happen.
Yeah, not at all.
So preventing them moving forward is the only thing we can do.
Yeah.
Appreciate you,
Thank
brother.
you, man.
Yes, sir.
Yes, sir, man.
Absolutely.
Sure.
So Travis had some really nice words about love and peace and understanding and community and acceptance and everything like that. And all that I can say is that I wonder what would happen, Travis, if your concerts really focused on those aspects rather than what they were focused on that night. It's odd to me that now when people are pushing against you, you're a man of God and peace and kindness and love and joy and acceptance and everything else that you listed there, when that wasn't the vibe that anybody was getting the other night. Let's just talk about the nonverbal communication here for a second. The science side of this. During the entire time, all that we could really say scientifically is that he was pretty agitated throughout it. There were points in those agitation points that were much larger and very large red flags. And you know which ones I'm talking about, where I believed that he may be deceitful. Could I say for certain? No. Once again, nonverbal communication and body language reading isn't for finding deceit. It's more accurately described as interpreting which is really truthful rather than what is actually false. And if we can decipher the truth, then we can narrow down what is fake. So with this in mind, all that I can say is that Travis Scott didn't hold an interview. Travis Scott had his lawyers write him some responses to an interview, and he responded with those responses regardless of the questions. So people are upset because Travis, once again, you have dropped the ball on your side of things. This is a very difficult situation because, frankly, the person who was in charge, Travis, the person up on stage, all that he could really do was call for the concert to stop and not have incited those sorts of actions in the past. It's too late for that now because he decided to do dumb things and ignore things. And that's not good. So now we have to figure out what it's going to be like moving forward. Travis wants to try to run by it, to tip his hat on the way by to the victims and be done, and try to find solutions before the grieving can be completed. It takes time for people to process things like this. This interview didn't cut it for me. You take this information, do your own research as well, make sure you cross-reference everything, and make sure that you don't just take only my word for everything or anything like that. This is what I was able to find out. I hope you appreciated this video. If you did like it, consider hitting the like button, hit subscribe if you want to see more videos like this. I have a number of series that are churning around. Some will be coming back, some will be phasing out, and it stays pretty active, but there should be about 2 videos a week. In my Patreon, I do upload any videos that have been claimed or blocked in countries. I upload them over there, the full version without any of the claiming or blocking, because Patreon works a little bit different with the video system over there. But without further ado, that's all that I've got for the day. My name is Logan, and you have been oh so awesome as you always are. And I will see you in the next video. Cheers, guys.